Hello my friends, my name is AJ and welcome back to another special Christmas video. Today I want to talk about something a little bit different. A few years ago I made a video about a series of Netflix Christmas movies that were kind of hilarious and kind of annoying, and I want to make another video about some Christmas movies that I have really enjoyed. And I want to talk to you specifically about my favorite Hallmark movie series. I'm a big fan of Hallmark Christmas movies. I'm a big fan of all the Hallmark movies, the fall ones, the spring ones. The Christmas ones, though, are my absolute favorites. They're just so much fun and almost aware of how corny they are, and I think that's what makes them so enjoyable. Hallmark movies in general are usually pretty good. They're usually pretty passable. Some of them are a bit worse than others, but honestly, these ones are some of my favorites. I think that they are on the better end of the spectrum of Hallmark movies. And that series is the Christmas and Evergreen series. There are 4 movies in this series, with each one coming out one per year, with the most recent one coming out in 2020. Now, the first 2 are definitely more stereotypical, what you might think of when you think of Hallmark movies, but they are still enjoyable, and the later 2, though, have a lot of fun and new ways of looking at this sort of tropes, and they're just really enjoyable. The other thing that's really interesting about this movie series is that it has these overarching plot points and storylines. There is a guy who comes to town every year who looks exactly like Santa, named Nick, who actually might be Santa. They never really make it clear. There's a special snow globe that everyone makes Christmas wishes on, and they make it implied that it's kind of magic, but again, it's up to your own beliefs. They even have recurring motifs and traditions, like a big red truck that everyone in town uses, or there's the fact that they have a Christmas cookie making montage in every single movie, and the fact that in the later movies we even have cameos from the previous leads as it all takes place in the same town. It's just a really fun movie series, and I wanted to go through them with you and maybe try and convince you to check them out as well. Alright, let's dive in.
A Christmas gorilla.
The first Christmas and Evergreen movie follows Allie, who is the Evergreen veterinarian. She is planning to move to DC to be with her big city long-distance boyfriend Spencer. However, she ends up crossing paths with single dad Ryan and his daughter Zoe, who pass through Evergreen on their way to Florida for Christmas. But when a series of events, including a snowstorm and a rock slide, lead them all to be trapped in Evergreen for the rest of Christmas, Allie starts to find herself falling for Ryan and vice versa, and a very typical sort of Hallmark tradition. Alright, so obviously this is a very stereotypical Hallmark movie, I will give you that. We've got the big city business boyfriend, we've got the single dad in the small town, but you don't really have one person who doesn't really care about Christmas or anything like that. It's more so about Allie not really knowing what she wants to do. So what ends up happening is she's more invested in the idea of, do I want to go away from Evergreen for Christmas? Do I want to spend it with my family? Does she want to go work for a really big veterinary clinic in DC, or does she want to stay in Evergreen where she can have a more hands-on approach and work with farm animals as well as pets? There is also some really ridiculous stereotypes, like the fact that it seems the entire town is very invested in Allie staying in Evergreen and also her romance with Ryan. Allie and Ryan are a really cute couple. I think sometimes you have the risk of these actors not necessarily having a lot of chemistry with each other, but the two of them have really good chemistry and rapport through the whole film. They have a lot of really cute banter, it's really fun, but while Allie is still with her boyfriend from DC, she never actually seems like she's flirting with Ryan. She's way more focused on his daughter Zoe and making her have a good Christmas because her mom passed away the previous year, and Christmas reminds her and her dad of her mom. And so she is way more focused on the kid, which I think is a really good way, because when you have these romances where someone's already in a relationship, it definitely comes across as almost like a potential for cheating, which is definitely problematic. But a lot of Allie's relationship with Ryan and Zoe is behind trying to have Zoe enjoy Christmas, which leads to Allie having a lot of lines which are very funny. The actress Ashley Williams has a lot of very funny moments. I'm not sure if they're all intentional. Some of them seem like they may be improv, or they might not necessarily supposed to be as funny as they actually are to me.
I should go. Sappy. A Christmas gorilla.
But funny nonetheless. One of the things I do like about this movie is that the characters who are friends with Allie do not have their lives centered around her love life. A lot of times that is a risk that these movies face, which is that they exist only to give her advice on her love life and don't really have their own stories going on. But that's really not the case. Her good friend Michelle is trying to set up the Christmas festival for the first time and is dealing with a lot of stress and actually ends up having a panic attack later on in the movie. Her friend Ezra, who is the mayor of the city, is obsessed with trying to advance the town and make it very modern, which honestly Ezra is one of my favorite characters in the series. I think he's very funny and I really enjoy him.
Good morning, Ezra.
Former resident.
That is something that I think makes this series so special, and we'll see this through the rest of the films, is that the main characters do have their own storylines, but there are storylines with the other characters, and they are just as important and just as focused on as the main romances. So with that excellent introduction to the world of Evergreen, let's dive into the second movie.
What can I get for you, Kevin?
Oh, coffee, just black. Please. What?
'Tis the season, Kevin.
Christmas in Evergreen, Letters to Santa follows Lisa, who was born and raised in Evergreen, but now travels around as an interior designer who specializes in staging stores to be bought for commercial purposes. She decides to go back to her hometown of Evergreen for Christmas to experience it for the first time, and ends up deciding to try and fix up the old general store to have it sold by Christmas. In the process, she meets contractor Kevin and begins to fall for him. When she discovers an old letter to Santa, who she believes was written by Kevin, wishing for how Christmases used to be, she decides to use that as inspiration to try and fix up the store and give him the Christmas that he always wanted. Now, in this one, it is another somewhat stereotypical one. We've got the returning to the hometown. We've got one who is sort of a dreamer and loves Christmas and sort of playful. One love interest who's a little bit more serious. We've got friends who only really exist to further the romance plot. And we have my least favorite trope, miscommunication, where all of the problems in this relationship come from Kevin just not talking to Lisa and just jumping to conclusions, which definitely annoying. This is definitely the movie in the series that is my least favorite. I'm not a huge fan of the romance between the two. I'm also just not a huge fan of the way that the background characters are centered in this film, with not a lot of attention being paid to them and not really having them be as important. And there's also just a lot of really obvious things that end up being overlooked only to be brought in later as a, oh wow, aha moment, when if this woman is as good at interior design as she's supposed to be, she probably would have figured that out already. There's also a couple of plot twists that come up later in the movie which have very heavy-handed clues right before they're revealed as to what they are, which again makes it seem like these characters need a lot of help figuring out stuff that's actually quite obvious. Now, having said that, there are things I really do love. Lisa's friend Oliver, who only exists to further her plot, is delightful. I absolutely love him.
There's an ice skating pond?
I knew you would love that.
Where is it?
Ezra is just as funny as he is in the previous film. He is my favorite character and I love him.
I'm so sorry to have wasted your time. You have a beautiful store.
And it is not so much an enemies to lovers, but it is somewhat of a reluctant romance, and that does have its cute moments, its funny moments, despite the fact that I think that these two probably have the least amount of chemistry out of all the romantic couples in these films. And we actually also get a little bit more of a romance with one of the side characters, Michelle, Allie's really good friend, starts a romance with another one of the characters named Hannah's brother. That is something that will be developed over later films. So definitely a good starting point.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas! Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Welcome to Evergreen.
So following my least favorite movie in the series, we then jump into my favorite movie, and not just because Juliet O'Hara from Psych is in this one. This one is called Christmas in Evergreen, Tidings of Joy. It follows Katie, a journalist and novelist, who is coming to Evergreen for vacation to try and get some inspiration for her next novel. There she meets Ben, a former journalist turned librarian in Evergreen, and the two fall for each other while she investigates the town. Meanwhile, there's also a really fun mystery surrounding a Christmas time capsule in the town, and we get to see how that unfolds. We also get to follow Hannah as she tries to fix the snow globe with her friend Elliot after she accidentally broke it. Now, this one is definitely my favorite. I think these two have really, really good chemistry, and there's also less focus on the romance and more focus on some of the side characters, the plot with the Christmas time capsule, just a lot of different stuff going on. Now, one thing that I can say is that Ben and Katie do have a bit of conflict because Ben is very protective of Evergreen, and he worries that Katie, as a journalist, is going to write a piece about Evergreen thinking that it's all commercial and all of a show since it's such a Christmassy town, since she is somewhat cynical about the actual realism of how extreme the town gets into Christmas. However, that never really comes across as an enemies thing. Despite his clear carefulness around her and her way of portraying Evergreen, he clearly still likes her and he clearly wants her to experience the town for himself. He ends up being even more welcoming rather than trying to push her away, which leads to a very sweet romance. One of the other things I really like about this movie is that it sort of turns the trope of the woman giving up her dream job for a man on its head. Katie does not end up leaving the city and coming to stay in Evergreen. Instead, Ben ends up leaving Evergreen and coming to work in the city to live with Katie, which I think is such a sweet idea considering all the other romances have led to the couples staying in Evergreen. There is a bit of conflict, not to say this couple is perfect. There is one small conflict, but it's resolved in about a day after both characters apologize to each other.
So I was kind of tough on you yesterday.
Yeah, me too. I'm sorry about that.
Which again makes these two one of my favorite couples in the series because they are so mature in the way they handle the conflict. We also get to focus a lot on some of the side characters. As I mentioned, Michelle is now the mayor of Evergreen as Ezra has stepped down, and she is developing her romance with Hannah's brother. And Hannah actually has her own romance developing with her childhood friend Elliot, which again, we will focus on in the next film. I just really enjoy this one especially. I think it's so joyful, no pun intended, and it's so much fun. Also, I love that she's a writer. I think that might be part of the reason. One of the other really great things I love about Katie is that contrast to the previous movie, she actually is able to figure things out very quickly.
All these years looking at the sleigh and the snow globe, I always wondered if it was based on this one.
You should see if there's a key under it, like the one in the snow globe.
Maggie Lawson is a great actress. She has a lot of chemistry with the main actor, and the romance is sweet, the side stories are sweet, and it's just such a fun movie that turns a lot of these tropes on its head, and I just really, really enjoy it.
What are you doing exactly?
In life?
Diving into the last movie in the series, the most recent, this is Christmas in Evergreen, Bells Are Ringing. Instead of introducing us to a new character, we actually get to focus on a side character. Now we're focusing on Hannah and Hannah's relationship with Elliot. While Hannah's relationship with Elliot is going really well, she's feeling somewhat out of place because everyone else in town has something that they're known for and something that they do. She feels like she needs something for herself. Despite being very involved in the town, she doesn't have something specific to her. And so she decides to step up as the manager of the new Christmas museum at the old hat factory. However, as this starts to conflict with her relationship with Elliot, as well as some conflict with one of the owners of the hat factory, Hannah begins to question if this is something that will even work at all. One of the things I love about this movie is how the focus is on Hannah rather than Hannah and Elliot. Hannah's relationship with Elliot is definitely a really cute thing. They have a lot of chemistry, they're very playful, they're very cute together, and I love watching them together. But there is more of a focus on Hannah figuring out who she wants to be, what she wants to do with her life, and that's one of the main conflicts between her and Elliot's relationship, is that she has something she wants to do, he has something that he wants to do in a completely different city, which leads to the question of, well, even if we care for each other, if we have these different dreams that lead us in different places, can we stay together? And I love the focus on her journey to figure out herself rather than her journey to figure out the relationship. One of the other things that I really love is the side story of Michelle, who is now planning her wedding with Hannah's brother Thomas. This is super cute. We've seen a lot of Michelle has grown over these 4 movies. In the first movie, she's definitely very nervous and very anxious about planning this festival. By the 3rd movie, she's become the mayor, and by this movie, not only is she the mayor, but she's also done a lot of work on the Christmas museum, and she's planning her own wedding, and it's just honestly really great to see such development in a character who isn't even the main character in this film. Michelle actually is a big focus in this movie as well. We get to see her relationship with her sister, which is super cute and super realistic, as well as her relationship with her dad and her dad's new girlfriend, who her sister has a lot of conflict with as well. We also get a lot of focus on Hannah trying to convince one of the owners of the hat factory, Jeb Cooper, that the museum is a good thing, despite the fact that he feels bitterness towards it because he was the last person to run the factory before it shut down.
Ho, ho, ho. Do you need help? No.
He's an interesting character because he's definitely meant to be a Scrooge-ish character, but he doesn't actually hate Christmas. He just hates the idea of the factory being made a fool of. And he ends up having some really nice moments with Hannah, especially at the end, and it leads to sort of this unlikely friendship, which if they ever decided to make a 5th movie, maybe focusing on Michelle and her relationship with Thomas, I think that that would be a really, really cute thing to see. Maybe him working at the museum with Hannah and this unlikely friendship between them. Overall, I think these movies are some of the better ones that Hallmark has put out. They're really cute, they've got these adorable relationships, great realistic friendships and family dynamics. We've got this really, really good focus not only on the main characters but on the side characters as well, giving them their own character development over the films, and this over-the-top Christmas joy that just makes them so fun and joyful to watch. Now, is this series perfect? Absolutely not. There are definitely moments that make me confused, like the fact that in the first movie, no one knows Nick because he's just come in from Burlington, but by the next movie, he apparently has been there his whole life and always spends Christmas in Evergreen. Or the fact that Hannah and Allie's parents have parents that were the same age. Like, how old is Hannah supposed to be? Or how old were her parents when they had her? What logic is this? But despite this, I'm able to look at these flaws playfully because I think these movies are just so wonderful and I love them so very much. I've made it my own tradition to watch these films every single year because I really, really like them, and I would say they're up there with some of the more classic films that I've watched. So if you've never seen Christmas in Evergreen, I highly recommend checking them out. Hopefully I've convinced you to watch them. But if not, maybe Hallmark movies just aren't your thing. I totally get it, and I hope that whatever Christmas movies you check out this year you really enjoy. But that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to let me know, and let me know in the comments, have you ever watched the Christmas and Evergreen movies? Do you have any favorite Hallmark movies of your own, or just what are your favorite Christmas movies in general? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from all of you. But that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see all of you lovely people in the next video. Bye!